I still hear the laugh before I hear anything else. Not the words, not the accusation, not even the clink of the cuffs on my wrists. Just that laugh. Sharp, careless, confident. The kind of laugh someone makes when they're absolutely sure they know who you are. I had just said, I speak 10 languages. The judge leaned back, looked me up and down, and laughed like I'd told her the best joke of her week. "Sure you do," she said. "And I bake bread with the president on Sundays." The room chuckled with her. That was the moment I knew this wasn't really a trial. It was a verdict looking for an excuse. My name is Daniel Cross, and for most of my life people have decided my limits before I ever opened my mouth. I grew up in public housing on the south side of a city most people only drive past with their windows locked. My mom cleaned houses. My dad disappeared early. I worked nights, raised my kid alone, kept my head down. I learned fast that if you don't look like success, people assume you're faking it when you show any sign of it. That day in court, they had me in cuffs for fraud. Identity deception. Pretending to be something I wasn't. According to them, I'd tricked companies into paying me for translation work I couldn't possibly do. They listed my background like it was evidence. No degree, no certificates, no travel history. Just a guy from nowhere claiming to speak Spanish, Arabic, French, German, Mandarin, Korean, Russian, Portuguese, Italian, and Vietnamese. The prosecutor smiled while she said it like she was humoring a child who claimed he could fly. She called it a sad attempt to survive. Said desperation makes people lie. And every time she glanced at me, it was like she was already bored with the outcome. My lawyer tried. I'll give him that, but his voice shook. He'd seen this before. Judges like her, cases like mine, men like me. The judge cut him off and turned to me instead. She told me I should take the deal, save everyone's time, admit I was wrong. And if I tried to turn her courtroom into a circus, she promised I'd regret it. Her words weren't loud, but they landed heavy. That quiet kind of threat that assumes obedience. Something inside me pushed back. Not anger exactly, more like exhaustion. 39 years of swallowing the same assumptions. Every boss who talked slower around me. Every teacher who said I had potential but never opportunity. Every sideways look when I spoke too well for someone who looked like me. I raised my hand and asked to speak. The room fell quiet, the wrong kind of quiet, like when people are waiting for you to embarrass yourself. I told her she'd been talking about me like I wasn't even there, that she'd decided I was a fraud before hearing a single piece of real evidence. I said I wasn't asking for sympathy. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes to prove I wasn't lying. She laughed again, louder this time, made a joke about magic tricks, about how people like me don't wake up fluent in 10 languages unless we're reading subtitles in our head. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "If I'm telling the truth and you don't let me prove it, then you're the one denying justice." The room froze. I could feel every breath stop. Her smile disappeared. She leaned forward, studied me like a bug that had learned to talk, then said, "Fine." Not 5 minutes. 10 experts. 1 for each language. Real tests. No mercy. And if I failed, she'd add contempt charges on top of everything else. I said yes, without thinking, because at that point, losing quietly felt worse than risking everything. The holding cell smelled like bleach and old regret. Another guy in the next cell asked if I was the language guy. I nodded. He laughed and said I had guts, asked how someone like me even learns that many languages. I told him about my mom's job. She cleaned houses for international families, diplomats, engineers, doctors. When she couldn't afford childcare, she brought me along. I grew up on other people's floors playing with kids who spoke different languages at home. Kids don't translate. They just talk. And if you listen long enough, you learn. Every family moved eventually. New language. New goodbye. I learned to speak, and I learned how to lose people without making a sound. 3 days later, the courtroom was packed like a premiere. Cameras, reporters, 10 experts sitting in a row, arms crossed, waiting to dismantle me. The judge looked excited like she was finally getting the entertainment she'd ordered. The first test was Spanish. Easy start, I thought. Then they handed me a legal document packed with regional terminology and archaic phrasing. I read it, translated it, explained the nuance. The expert blinked like he'd missed something. French came next. Medical terminology. I didn't just translate the words, I explained how context shifts meaning. German law followed. I pointed out a contradiction in the contract. The expert frowned, reread it, and went quiet. One by one, they tried to trip me. Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, Korean honorifics, Portuguese slang, Italian opera terminology. Each test got harder. Each time I passed. The room changed slowly, like air pressure dropping before a storm. The laughter disappeared. The whispers turned into silence. The last expert tested Vietnamese. Ancient phrasing. Historical context. I froze for a second, not because I didn't understand it, but because it sounded like my mother's voice. Like home. I finished, and when I looked up, the judge wasn't smiling anymore. She called for a recess. The prosecutor asked to drop the charges. Just like that. The same system that laughed at me now wanted to pretend none of this had happened. Outside, cameras shoved microphones in my face. They wanted a headline. The Miracle Man. The fake turned real, but all I felt was tired. Vindicated, sure, but mostly tired. Because the hardest part wasn't proving I could speak. It was surviving a world that refused to listen. Here's the part people argue about. The judge apologized. Publicly. Said she let her assumptions guide her judgment. Some people say that's enough. Some say it's not. I don't know. What I do know is this. She wasn't evil. She was confident. And confidence mixed with bias is dangerous. It laughs when it should listen. It decides before it asks. I went home that night, hugged my kid, and sat in silence for a long time. I thought about how close I'd come to losing everything because I didn't fit someone's idea of who gets to be brilliant. And I thought about how many people never get their 10 experts, never get their moment. They just disappear into a system that shrugs and moves on. So yeah, I won. On paper, in headlines, in court. But the real fight is bigger than me. It's about who we believe, who we doubt, who we laugh at when they tell us who they are, because talent doesn't always come with paperwork. Truth doesn't always sound polished. And sometimes the person everyone's mocking is the one holding the whole room together. So here's my question for you. Was the judge wrong or just human? Was I reckless or necessary? And how many people have you seen written off because they didn't look like the version of success we're comfortable with? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear where you stand because stories like this don't end in courtrooms. They end in conversations.